A cottage? Ooh, I open the door and go in.
I have a bad feeling about this.
Inside you see a large black cauldron and a hideous old woman. Welcome, dearies. Please come in and have some tea. She calls to you and gestures for you to enter.
Wait, what was that?
Yeah, what gives with this stupid old witch voice? I thought we had a social contract around here.
The fighter and the rogue bring up excellent points. As established in our social contract, we do not do silly voices at our game table.
Oh, I'm sorry. Does that disqualify me from being the dungeon master then?
Absolutely not. Don't you know that once you're the dungeon master, you will forevermore be pressed into that role and never be able to escape it?
Yeah, that's true. Until you die or Zack, the editor, kills you, you're the dungeon master.
And since you're now the forever DM, you need to work on your descriptions.
Yeah, hideous old woman? That sucks! Well, I'm just an intern. I've never received training on delivering good descriptions. Perhaps the company has instructor-led trainings available for me.
ILTs here. I'm afraid not.
Oh, but you know what you could do? Go to describe.com. They have beautiful descriptive text for everything.
Everything you say. That sounds amazing.
A shadow fills the air as a chill crawls over your flesh. Something is coming. You see her through the darkened space in the air. At first, a distant figure in the haze, but then rapidly closer and clearer, as if each step she takes in that strange netherrealm carries her 10 paces forward. And then she's all too near, the darkness vanishing behind her hunched back. The hideous hag smiles, revealing teeth like tumbled tombstones, and chuckles darkly. There! How was that?
I don't think we're ready for describe.com. Please never do that again.
Welcome to the DM Lair. I'm Lucar, and I've been a Dungeon Master since high school. On this channel, I give practical Dungeon Master advice that you can use in your D&D games. Today in the Lair, I'll be telling you the story of Granny Titchwillow, an NPC that almost all of my players in almost all of my games have run into at one point or another. And along the way, we'll be drawing lessons of how to make an outstanding NPC in Dungeons & Dragons. Because despite our best intentions, our NPCs often fall very flat at our game tables. But first, do you sometimes find it challenging, much like Gary the intern, to give narrative descriptions to your players? Descriptions of monsters, places, spells, and other important elements of an epic fantasy adventure? Well, with Describe, you can enter the name of a monster, place, or spell and get a professionally written narrative description you can read to your players. For instance, let's say that you need to describe a hag's lair. Well, Describe has you covered. Just type in hag lair, and a beautiful description crafted by Describe's experienced RPG writers comes up. Then you just read it out loud to your players, setting the scene perfectly and leaving your players terrified. There are currently over 2,000 scenes of monsters, places, spells, characters, and items to help you describe that perfect scene to your players. Now, many of the scenes are completely free, but hundreds more are available with a paid subscription. So if you want to enhance the theater of mind experience for your players in your next game session, check out Describe at dscryb.com/thedmlair. And if you use the coupon code TheDMLair, you will get 10% off your first subscription payment. So if you go for that annual payment option, you'll save even more. And now the story of Granny Titchwillow. Granny Titchwillow began with my Sword Coast guard group around level 6 or so, which is when they first ran into Granny Mathilda Titchwillow. Now, my players were on orders from Tazarkan the Younger to track down a criminal named Ashton Sanguine, who was last seen heading to Rassalantar. And as they were heading to Rassalantar, they ran into a patrol of White Knights, who had a base nearby in Gauntlet Hall. Now, the White Knights worshipped Torm, who is a good aligned deity, but my goal was to paint them in an unfavorable way to my players, even though the knights themselves were technically lawful and good human beings. mostly. I was setting something up for the future with Granny Titchwillow. So the knights come upon the PCs thinking they're up to no good, and they begin to interrogate them. Now my players are not very happy, and one of the players, a fighter, challenges the patrol captain to a duel, and they duel it out, and the player wins. So the White Knights decide to leave them be, although they're very bitter about the experience, and they gallop off. Okay, so my players get to Rassalantar, and they are investigating around trying to find clues to Ashton Sanguine's location. They're not coming up with a whole lot, and folks there in Rassalantar tell them that there is a diviner living out in a cottage on the outskirts of town that might be able to help them. This, of course, is Granny Mathilda Titchwillow. Now, my players are approaching her cottage, and there are fields of wheat with dozens and dozens of scarecrows in them. This has the players on edge as they're traveling through the wheat with these scarecrows. And then as they walk, the gravel on the road begins to damage them, hurt them through the soles of their boots, forcing them to go into the fields of wheat, even closer to these creepy scarecrows. And I'm describing things in a very suspicious way, and my players are suspecting that something is up. But nothing really happens, it's just a creepy little scene. They get to Granny Titchwillow's cottage, they knock on the door, they begin to knock on the door, but before they can even knock, the door swings open. And Granny Titchwillow, this humpbacked old lady from within, calls out to them,
Oh, please come in, dearies. Have some tea with me.
and this brings me to my first point for making outstanding NPCs. Use interesting voices. I'm telling you, there's something to it. When you give your NPC an interesting and cool voice, it will appeal way more to players than if you don't. Gary the Intern was an example of this. Granny Titchwillow was an example of this. My buddy Matt ran a game for us once where there was an NPC called Grandpa Chops, and he had this amazing southern hillbilly type voice that we all loved. Now, I know not everybody can do voices, but I suggest trying and practicing and being okay getting outside of your comfort zone, because using special voices for NPCs really does help. Okay, so inside, the players are offered tea, and some of them drink some, others are suspicious and just pretend to, but actually don't. The tea ends up being beneficial, there's nothing wrong with the tea, everybody's just really suspicious because humpbacked old lady inviting them for tea, and there's weird stuff hanging all over the place, there's like eyeballs, and just, it was really, really creepy, the inside of this cottage. So they ask for help locating Ashton Sanguine, and Titchwillow says that she could help, but you see, she is very sad because her dear sister Agnes Gristlegrums was recently murdered by the White Knights, and her bones are kept underneath Gauntlet Hall. And she wants them to go get her sister's bones back, and then she'll help them find Ashton Sanguine. She ends up telling the players that her sister was burnt at the stake by the White Knights under suspicion of being a witch, which of course she wasn't. Now my players don't really know what to think of all of this because Granny Titchwillow is very creepy, but at the same time, they do not like the White Knights. They absolutely despise them. They think they're like, I don't know, arrogant pricks, do-gooders that just want to push people around and bully people. So they decide to help Granny Titchwillow and go get her sister's bones back from the White Knights. And in part, the reason the players went along with this is that I took the time to set the White Knights up as bad guys in a way prior to them meeting with Granny Titchwillow. Next tip for making outstanding NPCs. NPCs with a secret or mystery about them. Bland, run-of-the-mill NPCs that are exactly what the players expect are, well, bland and boring. Granny Titchwillow was more than she was letting on, and the players knew it. They suspected that she was a hag or a witch or a bad person, but she was being nice to them, she was being kind, she was giving them some nice tea, she needed their help, and she was asking them to go against the White Knights that they did not like. So anyway, this all made her mysterious and interesting, and the players took a liking to her pretty quickly. Okay, so the players go to Gauntlet Hall, and they start poking around, trying to figure out a plan for what they're going to do. They know that the bones are interred somewhere on premises, possibly underground or in some sort of crypts or burial chambers, but they gotta figure out where those are and how to get there without, getting caught and stuff. So 4 players go up to the front gates and announce themselves to the knights, claim they are interested in joining their order. The White Knights, always eager for recruits, usher the players into the chapel. And there, in the chapel, there is a high priest that begins to give the players lectures about Torm and his greatness and everything that they'll need to know to become White Knights themselves. And here my players learn about the White Knights arresting and burning lots of women in the countryside that they claim are witches, but it's pretty clear that they probably aren't witches, and the knights are just overzealous. This, of course, leads my players to absolutely hate the knights even more. I mean, the knights are claiming to be good people, but the players absolutely don't think that they are. They don't think they are. My players think they're horrible people. And as they're there, I continue to paint the White Knights as the bad guys, which serves to position Granny Titchwillow to be on the side of good. So my players are in this chapel with this High Priest of Torm, who is giving them a lecture, and the High Priest is constantly punctuating his lecture with cries of "Hail Torm!" And my players, of course, are expected in turn to say "Hail Torm!" And this whole Hail Torm thing became a sort of ongoing joke because the White Knights were featured in several adventures later on during the campaign, and it always seemed to come up, this whole Hail Torm thing. Okay, now while all of this was going on, the lecture and the talkie-talkie with the 4 players who announced their presence, there was a 5th player, Eladin, a wizard, who sneaked down into the catacombs, which the entrance was in that chapel, and started exploring by himself, trying to find the bones. Now he avoids a patrol of guards and finds a very large room with a statue of Torm at the far end of it in the center, flanked by 2 angels. And there is a large pool that runs down the middle of this chamber, and in the pool are several wooden boxes, clearly coffins. Now he figures these are coffins, and thinking that there might be bones inside, he touches one of the coffins, trying to determine which one might have Agnes's bones in it. This of course triggers the statue of Torm to animate and attack. And by the way, it's a stone golem and way too powerful against one level 6 character. Eladin fights this thing for a few rounds and barely manages to escape with his life. And he gets back to his companions, who have been this whole time that he's adventuring down there, listening to the High Priest lecture and saying "Hail Torm" at intervals. My players find an excuse to leave Gauntlet Hall, and they go around back and start looking for alternative entrances. So my players find a back entrance that goes into the catacombs. They head on in, they end up fighting a patrol of White Knights. They go and together fight this statue of Torm, defeat it, and get the coffin of the bones of Agnes Gristlegrums and return to Granny Titchwillow. So they got it, they got the bones, it's good, it's all great. But there were survivors of the patrols that they fought that got away, and the group becomes criminals wanted by the White Knights. This doesn't really come into play right away, but later on down the road it does. In fact, later in the campaign, the White Knights press charges in Waterdeep, and the players have to stand trial for their crimes. Not now, this is later in the campaign, right? And this is a reason I try to have enemies flee, such as the White Knights did in the catacombs, because then later on you can introduce consequences in the game. So my players return the bones to Granny Titchwillow, and she is very appreciative. She gives them some more tea and even some potions as a thank you. And so at this point, it's time for Granny Titchwillow to fulfill her end of the bargain and help the players find Ashton Sanguine. So she goes over to a cabinet, pulls out a tin pan and a pouch of small bones, proclaiming,
"Let us consult the bones!"
She slits her wrist, spilling blood into the pan, and then casts the bones in it. She then reads the fall of the bones to tell them where Sanguine is.
"According to the bones, you can find Sanguine to the east, in the mountains."
And I'm playing up her evil cackling voice, describing the slitting of her wrists and casting the bones in this pan. Her method of magic and divination is clearly suspect and not entirely good. So my players are convinced that she is evil at this point, but she has been helpful and she needed their help, and against some people, the White Knights, that they didn't like. So they're kind of okay with it, and they leave her to go track down Ashton Sanguine. My next tip for creating outstanding NPCs: make them weak, helpless, or needing the player's help. I don't know why, but there's something to this. It worked for Gary the intern. He was so pitifully weak that the players took compassion on him and took him under their wing. Granny Titchwillow didn't seem dangerous, even though she was creepy and she needed their help. She begged them to help her get her sister's bones back, and then she treated them so well when they did so. Perhaps it's because the players are heroes in the game, and NPCs that make them feel heroic resonate with them and make them feel good. So they seem to take a liking to those NPCs. I don't really know why, I just kind of piecing together clues here to try to give you some suggestions. So what happened with Sanguine? Yeah, they found him, though that was not the goal of the adventure. That wasn't the point. Ashton Sanguine was not the goal. He was not the mission. Not for me, at least. Not for the Dungeon Master. My point was to set up Granny Titchwillow and the White Knights as future protagonists and antagonists in the campaign. The group would have further adventures that featured Granny Titchwillow and the White Knights, which leads to the next tip for creating outstanding NPCs. Sometimes they just happen and you get lucky. The intern was an example of this. But other times you work at it and you set them up over the course of an adventure or several adventures. This is what I did with Granny Titchwillow and the White Knights, both of which were important and interesting NPCs that my players had to deal with over the course of my Sword Coast Guard campaign. Don't forget, if you'd like finely crafted descriptive text for your games, monsters, places, items, and even spells, head over to describe.com/thedmlair and use coupon code thedmlair to get 10% off your first payment. And if you're looking for a monthly D&D magazine with 5th edition adventures and other Game Master resources to reduce your prep time and make your games even better, click the link below to my Patreon page. Every month my patrons get another issue of Lair magazine full of Dungeon Master resources. If you enjoyed Granny Titchwillow's amazing singing voice, give this video a thumbs up and leave a comment for the algorithm down below. Let YouTube know that I don't completely suck.
And until next time, let's play D&D.